helpless to come to his aid because of a person in power and people in power who were preventing them from saving his life. And there is no question that is murder. There's no way to excuse it. There's no, oh, it was a fraudulent $20 bill. It doesn't matter. That was clearly murder. And so either you uphold murder or you don't. And so what does that say about you as a person? If you don't view that as murder, what does that say about you as a person? And that's why I think people have been so vocal. And now we as Black people are saying, but we have been saying this all along,
right,
that this person did not deserve to die. The Trayvon Martin did not deserve to die. The Sandra Bland did not deserve to die. The Philandro Castro did not deserve to die. And so I think that now that we're being heard, all of the anger and all of the hurt is kind of rising to the surface. Like, you hear us now, so we need to say really fast while we have your attention all of the injustice that has been ignored. So when the question is, what can you do? I think the thing is, keep the conversation going. I think people who of color who are not in the Black community, white people, this conversation can't end next week. It can't end next month. As you said, Lynn, it can't end in, a couple of years. We have to keep going, and there has to be laws in place that punish people who murder, regardless as to whether or not they wear a badge or stand behind a uniform. They have to be punished. And four of those police officers have not been arrested. There are people who are sitting free. If I do something at work that is bad, I lose my job. If I shoot someone at work, I go to prison. So why have these people not gone to prison? You have to ask yourself, what is the reason?
And legally, there is no reason why they haven't. I mean, it does take time to build a case, but if they were 3 people, their negligence resulted in a man's death, okay, if they were fired for it, they should be charged with it. Because, I mean, that right there is implicating their guilt in there, saying that they were fired, they were negligent, then they should be charged as well.
Yeah.
And that hasn't happened. But as I said before, and I truly just think that, I mean, the reality of the situation is that if the city wasn't burning down, that officer would not be arrested in 3 days. You know how long it takes to build a case against an officer? It does not happen in 2 and 3 days. That did. And again, like I said, I am against violence. I am against the protests, but I'm not against protests. I am against violence or anything that is going to hurt another human being. Okay. However, do you think that would have happened if that city wasn't burning down?
Absolutely not.
It wouldn't. It wouldn't.
No.
It absolutely wouldn't be. So, like I said, I can't jump on the bandwagon of the violence because I can't see more innocent people getting hurt, right? Because that's what you're seeing. You're seeing more innocent people getting hurt. And for my show, what do? I advocate for victims of crimes. And are we just creating more victims here? I mean, is that the way? And I don't know what the answer is. And that's why I want to have these conversations to try and figure out, like, what is the answer? Because up until now, until the city, the cities were blazing up on fire, it didn't seem that anybody was taking action anywhere, So if violence is not the answer, and, rioting and looting and all of the city officials, are in fear that their, city is going to come under fire soon, and that's why they're acting. If that's the only thing that's working right now, what's the alternative? What is the alternative aside from getting out to vote? Okay, because like stems from the top, we need some leadership, right? Aside from voting and taking a part politically, what else is there? What else is there? And I don't know that answer, and that's what I am, that's what I am looking for. And Alex, welcome to the show. Hi, Alex.
So I'll take a stab at this and get to your original point. But as Lynn mentioned, not only am I the host content creator, producer, editor, all that of the sports arena. So like you, Tiana, I wear many hats. I also am Lynn's brother-in-law. And yeah, we had a long conversation about this. And we weren't angry at each other. We were just angry because this is what was going on. Now, anybody outside of that would have seen like, why are Lynn and Eric fighting? Because this very rarely ever happens. But to answer your question, and Noneka, I'm glad you brought up lynching because, you know, that still has not been made a federal law. Like, there are people still trying to keep lynching where it is so that it could be used. I'm just going to say it, against black people. So yeah, in 2020, we're still talking about that. To answer your question, Linda, what I think needs to happen is everyone who is not black, everyone who is not African American needs to have the conversation with those people of their same skin color. So basically, white people need to have the conversation with white people, Asians with Asians, Hispanics with Hispanics, Europeans with Europeans, whatever. Because I think that's the only way you're really going to affect change, because we have been talking about it, and everything that we've talked about has fallen on deaf ears. There has been, I won't even say minor, there's been minuscule micro changes that black people for a moment can say, okay, maybe we're starting to see some transition to equality, but at the end of the day, something else comes up, and very much like, you know, stuff that you don't want to talk about, it just gets swept under the rug. I agree with you. If officers are fearful that their city is going to burn down, if that's the reason that they take a knee with these protesters, then you know what? I can't sit here and say to myself, well, y'all had 450 years to fix this. What are y'all expecting us to do? But I agree with everybody. I do not condone the looting. I do not condone the rioting. If you can peacefully protest to get your point across, fine. If you can convince someone of the opposite race, of the opposite sex, gender equality, the whole 9 yards, to at least see where you are coming from, then that is change. But I think as black people, we're tired of talking about it because we've talked about it for so long and no one has listened to us. And we've tried to go the route of a peaceful protest, and we've tried to, you know, make our way to where we could have, as I said to you on Sunday, I want my seat at the table. That's what I want. I want to sit with people who have the power to affect change, but want my involvement in making that change stick and making that change happen and getting that perspective from me. That's what I want. Now, if it's not me, then let it be somebody else. But we have, I feel, black people, and I'll go so far as to say black men, no disrespect to the black women out there, but we have tried for so long to do what we were asked to do. And even when we go above and beyond, and we know in our heart that we are the better candidate, just a more intelligent individual, or someone who actually can bring some, 2020 is, common sense is just out the window, bring some common sense to the table, or a fresh set of eyes, I don't, whatever you want to use to call it. We have tried all of that. We've gone every which direction that we have been asked to go to. And the end result has still been the same. You want to talk the definition of insanity? Black people have been dealing with insanity since we were brought over here. And so that's why I say it has to come from somebody else. It has to come from someone outside of the black community, of the African American community, to say, this is not right. We need to change this. And we need you to change this. If you do it for no other reason, then do it because we look like you and it's bothering us that much. So unless you want us to start nagging you, then you need to make some changes. Because if you don't, we're going to continually harp on you about this until you make a change. It's like it's a simple analogy. It's like a kid going to his parents because he wants something. He will do whatever he can do till his parents finally concede and say, okay. And I think that is what needs to happen. White people, everybody else outside of the black race need to go to whoever is in charge and say, we do not want this to happen. And if you don't change this, we're going to continually be at your doorstep. We're going to continually be calling you. We're going to continually be emailing you. And we are going to continually bug the hell out of you until you finally give in and say, okay, let's make change.
So how do you make that come to fruition, realistically?
Realistically, you ask.
That's cool.
We ask you. We ask everybody who we know who is not a black person to continually have this conversation. We ask everybody who has a platform such as this to call their mayor, their governor, their state representative, their congressman, whoever. But the letters can't come from us. They have to come from y'all. And that's not to say we want y'all to pick up our burden. We'll walk with you. We have no problem with that. But when we start talking, people shut down. If you start talking, things might happen.
I'm going to disagree with you there.
Okay.
I'm going to disagree. I mean, I agree with what you're saying, that we all need to step up. I think it needs to be done together. I think everybody needs to do that together. You know what I mean? I think that if we're not united about it, right, then it can't happen, right? I think while I stutter out my words, apparently I can't speak English tonight. Apologies, guys. But, how do we start to unite on a personal level? I think if we were all united on a personal level, that would create a strong foundation. Because right here, this platform right here, we're a strong foundation right here because I've worked with Tiana. I work with Noneka, right? You're my brother-in-law. Alex, you don't know me, but I watch you and Eric debate all the time, okay? I think we have commonalities, even though we don't see eye to eye on some things. Eric and I don't see eye to eye a lot. You have to hear those conversations anyway. But we're personally invested in each other in some sense. How do you extend that to other communities?
Well, I think it's kind of difficult when people don't see you as an equal. And that's the whole thing, because racism is tied into a lot of things. It's tied into guilt. It's tied into denial. It's tied into something that has been so ingrained in our DNA. And that's on both sides. That's on the black side and that's on the white side. And the only place where I disagree with Eric is that there is a problem in saying that a white person has to vouch for a black person. We are all people. And that is the point. We are equal. Your word should not mean more than mine. You should not have to bring a white woman or a white man to tell me I have value. You should see that I have value. But that goes into changing people's hearts and attitudes, Lynn, which I think is what you're getting at. Mm-hmm. How do you change someone's heart?
Right.
And okay, so
I have these conversations, like what you were saying, have these conversations with people within your own race, have these conversations. And you guys already know me, I have these conversations already. I have these conversations with my children. I have these conversations with my friends, with my family. I'm very, very outspoken. People who listen to the show before this, they usually just hear me narrating. They don't know my big mouth, okay? They don't know how outspoken I am and how opinionated I can be. And I'm going to say, I'm not going to say that all older people are racist. I'm not saying that. I'm not going to place that blanket statement, but you have this generational gap, okay? And coming from me, I have, friends, who are black, who are like, oh, I don't really experience racism. Yes, you do, and you don't even know it, because when you walked out of the room, we did the look over the shoulder to see if they're there to say something that they knew they couldn't say in front of you, okay? It's deep. And people are raised that way. And people who don't think they are racist, I'm not saying all, you're racist, but as